The fluorescent lights of the grocery store hummed overhead, as Penelope Turner pushed her cart down the cereal aisle, mentally calculating whether the generic brand would stretch her budget far enough to also buy the cookies her 6-year-old daughter had been begging for all week. She was reaching for a box of Cheerios when she heard a voice that stopped her heart. Penny. Nobody had called her that in 8 years. She turned slowly, her breath catching in her throat as she saw him standing there in an expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Xavier Langston, the man who had held her during late-night study sessions, who had kissed her under the campus oak tree, who had promised her the world before life pulled them in different directions. Xavier. His name felt strange on her lips after so long. He looked older, more refined, but his eyes were the same deep brown that had once looked at her like she was the only person in the world. His dark hair was shorter now, professionally styled, and his jaw was stronger, more defined. He had filled out since college, his shoulders broader beneath that tailored jacket. "I can't believe it's you," he said, stepping closer. His cologne was subtle and expensive, nothing like the cheap drugstore body spray he had worn in college. "How long has it been?" 8 years, she said quietly, acutely aware of her worn jeans and faded sweater, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail because she had overslept after her daughter had a nightmare at 3 in the morning. His eyes traveled over her face like he was memorizing every detail. "You look exactly the same." "You're a terrible liar," she said with a small laugh, but there was no bitterness in it. She knew she looked tired. Single motherhood and working 2 jobs did that to a person. "I'm serious. You're still the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." Heat crept up her neck. "Xavier, don't, sorry." He shifted his weight, looking almost nervous, which seemed impossible for someone who carried himself with such confidence. "I just never thought I'd see you again. After graduation, after you stopped answering my calls, I thought maybe you hated me." Guilt twisted in her stomach. "I didn't hate you. I could never hate you." "Then why did you disappear?" She glanced down at her cart, at the budget brand items that told their own story. "Life got complicated." "Mommy." Penelope turned to see her daughter, Lily, running toward her with a box of cookies clutched in her small hands. The little girl had Penelope's dark blonde hair and green eyes, but her nose and smile belonged to someone else entirely, someone who had walked out on them 2 years ago. "Lily, I told you to stay close," Penelope said gently, taking the cookies and placing them in the cart. Xavier was staring at her daughter with an unreadable expression. "You have a daughter?" "Yes." Penelope put a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. "This is Lily. She's 6. "Hi," Lily said shyly, hiding partially behind her mother's leg. "Hi there," Xavier said, his voice softening. "I'm Xavier. I'm an old friend of your mom's." "Are you why she's turning all red?" Lily asked with the brutal honesty only a 6-year-old could manage. Xavier laughed, and the sound sent a wave of nostalgia through Penelope. It was the same laugh, warm and genuine. Maybe a little. Penelope wanted the floor to swallow her whole. "Lily, sweetheart, go pick out one more thing for lunch this week, okay?" The little girl scampered off, and Penelope finally met Xavier's eyes again. "I'm sorry," she says, "whatever comes to mind." "Don't apologize. She's adorable." He paused. "You're married." "Divorced," Penelope said, the words still feeling heavy even 2 years later. "It's just me and Lily now." Something shifted in his expression. Not pity exactly, but understanding. "I'm sorry. Don't be. We're better off." She meant it. Mark had been a mistake, a rebound relationship that had moved too fast and crumbled even faster once real life set in. But he had given her Lily, and she would never regret that. "Listen," Xavier said, pulling out his wallet. "Can I give you my card? Maybe we could get coffee sometime, catch up properly." She looked at the business card he offered. Xavier Langston, CEO Langston Media Group. Her eyes widened. You're a CEO? Yeah. He rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture so familiar from their college days that it made her chest ache. Remember how I was always talking about wanting to work in publishing? I started a media company 5 years ago. We do magazines, online content, some book publishing. It's grown faster than I ever imagined. Xavier, that's amazing. She meant it. He had always been brilliant, driven, someone who knew where he was going even when the path was not clear. Thanks, but I want to hear about you. What have you been doing? Are you still writing? The question hit harder than it should have. She had been an English major, had dreamed of being a novelist, had filled notebooks with stories and ideas. Now she spent her days managing a medical office and her nights waitressing at a diner. Not really. Life got in the way. His expression fell. Penny, you were so talented. I have a 6-year-old to feed. Talent doesn't pay the bills. She did not mean to sound bitter, but exhaustion made her words sharp. Lily came running back with a box of granola bars, and Penelope added them to the cart. She needed to finish shopping and get home. Lily had a playdate in 2 hours, and she needed to tidy the apartment first. Take the card, Xavier said softly. Please. Even if you don't want to get coffee, just take it. I've thought about you so many times over the years, wondered what happened to you. I'd really like to know you're okay. She took the card, her fingers brushing his for just a moment. The contact sent electricity through her. Okay, thank you. His smile was worth it. Maybe next weekend. There's a great coffee shop downtown, very kid-friendly. Lily could come too if you want. I'll think about it, she said, but they both knew she was already planning to text him. They said their goodbyes, and Penelope finished her shopping in a daze. Xavier Langston. After all these years, and he was a CEO now, successful and apparently still single based on the lack of a wedding ring. Not that it mattered. She was a divorced single mom working 2 jobs and living paycheck to paycheck. They lived in different worlds now. But that night, after Lily was asleep, Penelope found herself staring at his business card and remembering how it felt to be 20 years old and in love, before life got complicated and dreams got deferred. She picked up her phone and typed a message. Hi, this is Penny. Coffee next Saturday sounds nice, just me though. Lily has a birthday party to attend. His response came almost immediately. Perfect, I'll send you the address. I'm really glad I ran into you today. Me too, she typed back and realized she meant it. The week dragged by in a blur of work and parenting. Penelope found herself thinking about Xavier at odd moments, remembering the way he had looked at her in the grocery store, the warmth in his voice when he talked to Lily. She told herself not to get her hopes up. This was just coffee between old friends. Nothing more. But on Friday night, she stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes trying to decide what to wear, and she knew she was lying to herself. Saturday morning arrived with rain pattering against the windows. Penelope dropped Lily off at her friend's house for the birthday party, enduring knowing looks from the other mom when she mentioned having coffee plans. News traveled fast in their small social circle, and she had made the mistake of mentioning running into an old boyfriend. The coffee shop was in a nice part of downtown, the kind of place with exposed brick walls and plants hanging from the ceiling. Xavier was already there when she arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of him. He stood when he saw her, and she noticed he was dressed casually today, jeans and a navy sweater that made his eyes look even darker. I took a guess, he said, gesturing to one of the cups. Vanilla latte with an extra shot, right? Her heart squeezed. You remembered. I remember everything about you, Penny. They sat down, and for a moment they just looked at each other, the weight of 8 years hanging between them. You want to go first, or should I? Xavier asked. You, she said. I want to hear about this media empire you built, he laughed. Empire is generous, but okay. He told her about graduating, about getting a job at a struggling magazine and working insane hours to turn it around. About the investors he had convinced to back his vision, about late nights and early mornings, and the slow, terrifying process of building something from nothing. About the moment when his company finally turned a profit, when he realized he had actually done it. "It sounds incredible," Penelope said, and she meant it. His passion was evident in every word, the same intensity he had brought to everything in college. "It's been consuming," he admitted. "I've basically lived at the office for the past 5 years. No social life, no relationships that lasted more than a few months. My mom keeps telling me I'm going to die alone surrounded by magazines. I doubt that." She took a sip of her latte. It was perfect. "What about you?" he asked. "Tell me everything. What happened after graduation?" "We were supposed to move to New York together, remember? You were going to write the next great American novel and I was going to work my way up at some publishing house." The memory was bittersweet. "I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks after graduation." Xavier went very still. "Lily's dad. Mark. We had dated for a few months senior year after you and I." She trailed off, not wanting to dredge up the painful end of their relationship. They had fought about the future, about whether to try long distance or make a clean break. She had chosen the break, thinking it would hurt less. She had been wrong. Anyway, Mark seemed excited about the baby at first. We got married quickly, way too quickly. Moved to his hometown because he had a job lined up there. I thought we could make it work. But you didn't. He left when Lily was 4. Said he was not ready to be a father, that he felt trapped. Last I heard, he was in California, working at some tech startup. He sends child support when he remembers, which is not often. She tried to keep the bitterness out of her voice, but it was hard. Mark had abandoned them, had walked away from their daughter like she meant nothing. Xavier's jaw was tight. "I'm sorry, that must have been incredibly hard." "It was. It is. But Lily is the best thing that ever happened to me. I wouldn't change her for anything. She seems like a great kid." "She is." Penelope smiled, thinking of her daughter's infectious laugh, her endless questions, the way she gave the world's best hugs. "She's smart and funny and so full of life. Being her mom is the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most rewarding." "Are you happy?" Xavier asked quietly. The question caught her off guard. "I don't know. I'm tired most of the time. I work at a medical office during the day and waitress at night 3 times a week. Money is always tight, but Lily is happy and that's what matters." "What about your writing?" "I don't have time for that anymore." "That's a shame. You were so talented, Penny. Your short stories in college were incredible. I still remember that one about the lighthouse keeper. It made me cry." She looked down at her cup. "That was a long time ago. I'm different now." "Are you?" He reached across the table and took her hand. The touch sent warmth racing up her arm. "Because sitting here with you feels exactly like it did 8 years ago. You're still the same person I fell in love with, Xavier." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "We can't just pick up where we left off. Everything is different now." "I know. But maybe we could start something new. I've dated other people, tried to move on, but nobody ever measured up. You set the bar too high." She wanted to pull her hand away to protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak, but she could not make herself do it. His touch felt too good, too right. "I have a daughter. I have responsibilities. I can't just run off to fancy dinners and jet set around the world or whatever it is CEOs do." "I'm not asking you to. I'm asking if I can take you to dinner next week. Somewhere nice, just the 2 of us. A real date." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why now, after all this time? You're successful, you're handsome, you could date anyone. Why would you want to be with a divorced single mom who can barely make ends meet?" His eyes never left hers. "Because 8 years ago, I was too proud and too young to fight for you when you said we should break up. I let you walk away, and I've regretted it every single day since. Running into you at that grocery store felt like fate giving me a second chance, and I'm not going to waste it. I don't care about the money or the circumstances. I care about you. I've always cared about you." Tears pricked at her eyes. "This is crazy." Maybe, but is it a yes? She thought about Lily, about the bills piled on her kitchen counter, about all the reasons this was a bad idea. Then she thought about how she felt sitting here with him, how right it felt to have her hand in his. "Yes," she said. "It's a yes." His smile could have lit up the entire city. "Thank you. I promise I'll make it worth your while." They spent the rest of the morning talking, sharing stories, filling in the gaps of 8 lost years. He told her about expanding his business, about the moment he appeared on a business magazine's 30 under 30 list, about his family. His parents were still together, still living in the same house he had grown up in. His sister had gotten married and had twins. Normal, happy family things that made Penelope's chest ache with a longing she usually kept buried. She told him about Lily's first word, about the struggle of learning to be a single parent, about her own parents' disappointment when her marriage fell apart. They were not cruel, but they had made it clear they thought she had thrown away her potential. She rarely saw them anymore. "I wish I could have been there for you," Xavier said. "I hate that you went through all that alone. I managed. I'm stronger than I look. I know you are. You always have been." When they finally left the coffee shop, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening and clean. Xavier walked her to her car, an old sedan that had seen better days. He did not comment on it, just opened her door for her like he used to do. "Tuesday night," he asked. "For dinner, I need to find a babysitter. I can send a car for you, and I'll cover the babysitter. Please let me do this." She wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her independence, but the truth was she could not afford a babysitter on top of everything else. "Okay, thank you." He leaned down and kissed her cheek, and the simple gesture made her heart race. "I'll text you the details. And Penny, I'm really glad you said yes." She drove home in a daze, her cheek still tingling from his kiss. This was insane. She was going on a date with Xavier Langston, CEO, the man who had broken her heart and then pieced it back together in the span of a week. What was she thinking? But when she picked up Lily from the birthday party and her daughter asked why she was smiling so much, Penelope could not help but laugh. Maybe she did not need to think. Maybe she just needed to feel. Tuesday arrived faster than she expected. Penelope spent the day at work, barely able to concentrate, her mind wandering to what the evening would bring. She had borrowed a dress from her friend Sarah, a simple black number that made her feel elegant for the first time in years. She did her makeup carefully, actually took time to curl her hair instead of just pulling it back in a ponytail. When the babysitter arrived, a sweet college girl Xavier's assistant had recommended and thoroughly vetted, Lily looked at her mother with wide eyes. "Mommy, you look like a princess." "Thank you, baby." Penelope knelt down to hug her daughter. "Be good for Emma, okay? I'll be home before you go to sleep." "Are you going to see Xavier again?" "Yes, I like him. He has a nice smile." Penelope kissed her daughter's forehead. "He does, doesn't he?" The car Xavier sent was absurd. A sleek black town car with a driver who opened the door for her and offered her bottled water. She felt like she was in a movie, watching someone else's life unfold. This could not be real. The restaurant was even more overwhelming. It was the kind of place that required reservations months in advance, where the chandeliers probably cost more than her annual salary. Xavier was waiting for her in the lobby, looking devastating in a dark suit. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "Wow," he said. "You look stunning. You clean up pretty nice yourself." She tried to sound casual, but her voice shook slightly. He offered his arm and she took it, letting him lead her to their table. It was in a quiet corner with a view of the city lights, intimate and romantic. She felt like she was living in a fairy tale. "This is too much," she said once they were seated. "Nothing is too much for you." He poured her a glass of wine from a bottle that had probably been waiting at the table. "I want to spoil you, Penny. Let me do that. I'm not used to this, I know, but you deserve it. You deserve to be treated like you're special because you are." Dinner was incredible, course after course of food she could not even pronounce. They talked and laughed, and with each passing minute she felt more of her walls crumbling. This was Xavier, the man she had loved more than anything, and he was looking at her like she hung the moon. "Can I ask you something?" she said over dessert, a chocolate creation that was almost too beautiful to eat. "Anything. Why did we really break up? I've thought about it so many times, and I still don't understand what went wrong." He set down his fork, his expression serious. "We were scared. I was scared. We were about to graduate, about to face the real world, and the idea of trying to maintain a relationship while we were both figuring out our careers felt impossible. When you suggested we should break up, I agreed because I thought it was what you wanted. I thought I was doing the noble thing, letting you go so you could chase your dreams without me holding you back. But I wanted you to fight for me," she said softly. "I wanted you to tell me we could make it work, that we were worth the effort. I know that now. I was an idiot. If I could go back, I'd do everything differently. I'd tell 22-year-old Xavier to get his head out of his ass and hold on to the best thing that ever happened to him. We were both young. We both made mistakes. You think we can get past them?" he asked. "Start fresh?" She looked at him across the table, this man who had grown into someone even more remarkable than she had imagined, and she knew her answer. "I'd like to try." His smile was everything. "That's all I need to hear." He drove her home himself, the expensive car feeling strangely normal with him in the driver's seat. They talked about easy things, about movies they wanted to see and places they wanted to visit. When they pulled up in front of her apartment building, a modest complex in a working-class neighborhood, he did not flinch at the peeling paint or the broken light in the parking lot. "Can I walk you up?" he asked. "The babysitter is probably waiting to leave. Then can I see you again?" "This weekend. I have Lily all weekend. I don't like to leave her too much with sitters." "Then let me spend time with both of you. We could go to the zoo or the aquarium or wherever she'd like. I want to get to know her, Penny. She's a part of you, and that makes her important to me." Tears threatened again. Mark had never wanted to do family things, had always treated parenting like a chore. "Are you sure? Completely sure?" She leaned across the console and kissed him soft and sweet. It felt like coming home. "Saturday, the aquarium, she'll love that. Perfect." He kissed her again, deeper this time, and she felt the years melt away. They were not broken college kids anymore. They were adults with history and scars and a second chance at something beautiful. Saturday was perfect. Xavier picked them up in a more modest car, something that would not draw attention, and Lily chattered the entire drive about all the fish she wanted to see. At the aquarium, he was patient and attentive, lifting Lily up so she could see better, reading her all the plaques, buying her a stuffed dolphin from the gift shop that made her squeal with delight. "You're good with her," Penelope said as they watched Lily press her face against the glass of the shark tank. "She's easy to be good with. She's an amazing kid, Penny. You've done an incredible job raising her. It doesn't feel incredible most days. It feels like I'm barely keeping my head above water." He turned to look at her, his expression serious. "Can I ask you something without you getting defensive? That depends on the question. What if you didn't have to work 2 jobs? What if you had time to write again, to be with Lily, to not be exhausted all the time?" She stiffened. Xavier, if you're about to offer me money, I'm not. I'm offering you a job. My company needs writers, good writers who understand storytelling. I've read your work, Penny. You're talented. Come work for me. Regular hours, good salary, benefits. You could quit waitressing. You could have your life back. I can't take a job just because we're dating. That's not fair to you or to me. You wouldn't be. You'd be taking a job because you're qualified and because we need someone with your skills. The fact that we're dating is just a bonus. He took her hand. I'm not trying to rescue you. I'm trying to give you an opportunity. What you do with it is up to you. She wanted to say yes. God, she wanted to say yes so badly it hurt. To have normal hours, to not be running herself ragged, to maybe have time to write again. But accepting felt like admitting she could not handle things on her own. Think about it, Xavier said. No pressure. The job is yours if you want it, whether we work out or not. That's a promise. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Xavier would come over for dinner twice a week, bringing groceries and cooking with Lily, who adored him. On the nights Penelope worked at the diner, he would show up near closing time and walk her to her car, making sure she got home safely. They went on more dates, sometimes fancy, sometimes just walks in the park with Lily running ahead of them. Penelope found herself falling for him all over again, deeper this time because they were not kids anymore. They knew what they wanted, what they were willing to fight for. He was patient with Lily, never pushing too hard, letting the little girl warm up to him at her own pace. And Lily bloomed under his attention, asking when Xavier was coming over, drawing him pictures to hang on his refrigerator. One night, after Lily was asleep, they sat on Penelope's couch with glasses of wine, her head on his shoulder. "I've been thinking about your job offer," she said quietly. "Yeah, if I said yes, people would talk. They'd say I only got the position because of you. Let them talk. You know the truth, and so do I. You're talented, Penny. You deserve this chance." "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if I'm not good enough? What if I've lost it after all these years?" He turned to face her, his hands cupping her face. "You haven't lost anything. You're still the same brilliant woman who wrote stories that made people feel things. You just need the space and time to let that part of you breathe again." "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I'll do it." His kiss was fierce and proud. "You won't regret this, I promise." Starting at Langston Media Group was terrifying. The office was sleek and modern, full of young, ambitious people who all seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Xavier introduced her around, making it clear she was hired for her talent, not their relationship. He put her on a team writing feature articles for their flagship lifestyle magazine, working with an editor named Claire who was brilliant and demanding in equal measure. The first week was overwhelming. Penelope struggled to find her voice again, to remember how to craft a story that mattered. She would come home exhausted, doubting herself. But Xavier was always there with encouragement, reading her drafts and offering thoughtful feedback, reminding her why she had loved writing in the first place. Slowly, she found her rhythm. Her first published article was about single mothers re-entering the workforce, and it resonated with readers in a way that surprised everyone, including her. The comments poured in, women thanking her for telling their stories, for making them feel seen. Claire gave her more assignments, bigger features, more responsibility. Penelope quit her waitressing job. For the first time in years, she had evenings free to spend with Lily, to help with homework and read bedtime stories without falling asleep halfway through. She started writing fiction again, just for herself, filling notebooks with ideas and characters and worlds she wanted to explore. Life was good. Better than good. She was happy in a way she had not been since before Mark, since college, since those carefree days when everything felt possible. But she was also terrified because happiness felt fragile. like something that could shatter at any moment. 3 months into her new job, Xavier asked her and Lily to go away with him for a weekend. His family had a lake house upstate, and he wanted them to see it, to spend real time together away from the city. "My parents will be there," he warned. "They're dying to meet you. I've told them about you, about us." "What did you tell them?" "That I found the love of my life again, and I'm not letting her go this time." Her heart stopped. "Xavier, I know it's soon. I know we're taking things slow, but I need you to understand how serious I am about this, about you and Lily. I'm in love with you, Penny. I never stopped." She kissed him, pouring 8 years of longing and love and hope into it. "I love you too. I've loved you this entire time." The lake house was beautiful, a sprawling structure with huge windows overlooking the water. Xavier's parents were warm and welcoming, his mother immediately scooping Lily up and declaring her the most precious child she had ever seen. His father pulled Xavier aside, and Penelope caught snippets of their conversation, something about being sure, about not rushing, about learning from past mistakes. "Don't worry," Xavier's mother, Helen, said, coming to stand beside Penelope on the deck. "Robert just wants to make sure Xavier knows what he's doing. We've watched him build his company, but we've also watched him be lonely. When he told us about you, about running into you again, I saw something in his eyes I haven't seen in years. Hope." "I'm scared," Penelope admitted. "Everything is happening so fast, and I have Lily to think about. I can't just follow my heart without considering what's best for her." "That's what makes you a good mother. But from what I can see, what's best for both of you might just be my son. He's a good man, Penelope. He'll take care of you." That weekend was magic. They swam in the lake, cooked meals together, played board games that made Lily giggle until she hiccuped. Xavier's parents doted on Lily, and Penelope could see the family they could become, the life they could build together. It was not just about her and Xavier anymore. It was about creating something bigger, something lasting. On their last night there, after everyone else had gone to bed, Xavier took her hand and led her down to the dock. The moon was full, reflecting off the water in silver ripples. "I want to talk to you about something," he said. Her heart raced. "Okay. I know we've only been back in each other's lives for a few months. I know we're still figuring things out. But I also know that I wasted 8 years without you, and I don't want to waste another minute." He got down on one knee, and Penelope's breath caught in her throat. "I'm not asking you to marry me yet," he said quickly. "I know that's too soon, and I want to do this right. But I'm asking you to consider building a life with me. Move in with me, you and Lily. I have plenty of space, and I want to wake up with you every morning. I want to be there for Lily's school drop-offs and bedtime stories. I want to be a family." Tears streamed down her face. "Xavier, that's basically a proposal. I know, but I'll make it official when the time is right. For now, I just want you to know that I'm committed to this, to us. What do you say?" She thought about her cramped apartment, about the bills and the struggle and the exhaustion. But more than that, she thought about the life he was offering, not just material comfort but real partnership, real love. She thought about Lily's face when Xavier was around, how happy her daughter was, how secure. "Yes," she said. "Yes, we'll move in with you." He stood and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying at once. When he kissed her, she felt complete in a way she never had before, even back in college. This was different. This was built on truth and maturity and real understanding of what love meant. Moving in together was an adjustment. Xavier's penthouse was enormous, more space than Penelope and Lily had ever had. The first night, Lily ran through the room squealing with delight at having her own bathroom, her own walk-in closet, a window seat where she could read. "This is too much," Penelope said, watching her daughter explore. "It's not enough," Xavier replied. "I want to give you everything." They settled into domesticity surprisingly easily. Xavier would make coffee in the morning while Penelope got Lily ready for school. They would have dinner together every night, trading stories about their days. He taught Lily to play chess, and she taught him the intricate world of her favorite cartoon characters. They were becoming a family, real and solid and wonderful. Penelope's writing continued to flourish. She was promoted to senior writer, given her own column in the magazine. Her pieces about second chances and single motherhood and finding yourself again struck a chord with readers. She started getting emails from women thanking her, telling her she had inspired them. It was everything she had dreamed of back in college, and it was finally happening. 6 months after moving in together, Xavier took them to Paris. It was Lily's spring break, and he had planned the entire trip down to the smallest detail. They visited the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre, ate pastries that melted on their tongues, walked along the Seine as the sun set over the city. On their last night, they had dinner at a restaurant with a view of the twinkling lights of Paris. Lily was between them, chattering about all the things she wanted to tell her friends at school. After dessert, Xavier stood up and cleared his throat. "Lily, I need to ask you something important." The little girl looked up at him with wide eyes. "What?" "I love your mom very much." "And I love you very much too. I want us to be a real family forever. But I can't ask your mom to marry me without asking your permission first." "So, Lily Turner, would it be okay with you if I married your mom?" Lily's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? You'd be my dad?" "If you'll have me." She launched herself at him, hugging him tight. "Yes. Yes, please." Then Xavier turned to Penelope, who was already crying. He got down on one knee right there in the restaurant, pulling out a ring that sparkled in the candlelight. "Penelope Turner, I fell in love with you when we were too young to know what that really meant. I lost you and spent 8 years regretting it. Then fate gave us a second chance, and this time I'm doing everything right. You are the strongest, most incredible woman I've ever known. You're an amazing mother, a brilliant writer, and the love of my life. Will you marry me?" "Yes," she sobbed. "Yes, of course, yes." The restaurant erupted in applause as he slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her. Lily was jumping up and down, clapping her hands. It was perfect, absolutely perfect. They were married 3 months later in a ceremony at the lake house, surrounded by friends and family. Lily was the flower girl, taking her job very seriously as she scattered petals down the aisle. Penelope wore a simple white dress, and Xavier could not stop staring at her like she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "I do," she said when the moment came, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. "I do," he echoed. And then he was kissing her and everyone was cheering, and she was married to Xavier Langston, the boy from college who had become the man of her dreams. Their honeymoon was 2 weeks in Greece, just the two of them, while Lily stayed with Xavier's parents, who spoiled her rotten. They spent their days exploring ancient ruins and their nights tangled together in bed, making up for lost time. Penelope had never felt so happy, so free, so completely herself. When they got back, life returned to a new normal. Lily started calling Xavier Dad without being prompted, and the first time she did it, he had to leave the room because he was crying. Xavier formally adopted Lily 6 months after the wedding, and the day the papers were signed, they celebrated with a huge party. Penelope's first novel was published 2 years into their marriage. It was a love story, of course, about second chances and finding your way back to the person you were meant to be with. It was dedicated to Xavier and Lily, her reasons for everything. The book did well enough that she was offered a 2-book deal for more. "I'm so proud of you," Xavier said the night of her book launch party, holding her close as they danced. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. You're talented and driven and incredible. I just gave you the space to remember that." 3 years after their wedding, Penelope found out she was pregnant. They had talked about having more children, but she had been worried about her age, about whether it was the right time. But when she saw those 2 pink lines, all she felt was joy. "We're having a baby," she told Xavier that night, watching his face carefully. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing. "We're having a baby." Lily was thrilled to be getting a sibling. She immediately started planning how she would teach the baby everything she knew, how she would be the best big sister ever. Penelope watched her daughter's excitement and marveled at how much their lives had changed in just a few years. Their son, Alexander, was born on a sunny morning in May. He had Xavier's dark hair and Penelope's green eyes, and he was absolutely perfect. Lily held him in the hospital with tears in her eyes, promising to always protect him. Xavier looked at his family, at the wife he adored and the children he loved, and felt a completeness he had not known was possible. "We did good," Penelope said, watching him watch them. "We did amazing," he corrected, kissing her forehead. Life settled into a beautiful chaos of school runs and deadlines and late-night feedings. Xavier scaled back his hours at work, wanting to be present for every moment. Penelope continued writing, publishing 2 more novels that were even more successful than the first. Lily excelled in school and made friends easily, blossoming into a confident, kind girl. Alexander grew into a toddler who was all energy and laughter. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Xavier took Penelope back to the grocery store where they had run into each other. "Why are we here?" she asked, laughing. "Because this is where everything changed. This is where I found you again." He pulled her close in the cereal aisle, not caring about the other shoppers staring at them. 5 years ago, I was standing right here and I heard your voice and my entire world shifted. I don't believe in fate, but I believe in us. I believe we were always meant to find our way back to each other." She kissed him there in the grocery store, just like she had wanted to that first day but had been too scared to do. "I love you, Xavier Langston. I love you, Penelope Langston." They bought the same cereal she had been reaching for that day, plus the cookies Lily had wanted. When they got home, their children ran to greet them, and Xavier scooped them both up, making them squeal with delight. This was their life now. Not perfect, but real and full of love. They had found each other again when they needed it most, and they had built something beautiful from their second chance. Years later, when people asked Penelope about her love story, she would smile and say it started in a grocery store. But really, it started long before that, back when they were young and naive and thought they knew everything. It started with a breakup and 8 years of longing and one chance encounter that changed everything. It started with hope and ended with a family, with love that had been tested and proven strong. It ended with happily ever after, the kind you work for and fight for and cherish every single day. On Lily's high school graduation day, as Penelope watched her daughter walk across the stage, she felt Xavier's hand slip into hers. Alexander was on his other side, 14 now and already taller than his mother. They were all there, together, a family built on second chances and unwavering love. "What are you thinking about?" Xavier whispered. "How lucky I am, how different things could have been." "But they're not. This is our reality. You, me, our kids, this life we built together." She leaned her head on his shoulder, watching Lily receive her diploma. Their daughter was going to college in the fall, planning to study literature just like her mother. She was confident and happy and whole, raised in a home full of love and laughter. "Thank you," Penelope said quietly. "For what? For remembering me. For finding me in that grocery store. For never giving up on us." Xavier kissed her temple. "I could never forget you, Penny. You were written on my heart from the moment I met you." After the graduation ceremony, they took photos and went out for a celebratory dinner. Lily sat between her parents with Alexander across from her, and they talked about the future, about all the possibilities ahead. Xavier's parents joined them, along with Penelope's parents, who had slowly come back into her life over the years, proud of what she had accomplished. "A toast," Xavier's father said, raising his glass. "To Lily, who is embarking on the next chapter of her life, and to her parents who showed all of us what real love looks like." They clinked glasses, and Penelope felt tears prick her eyes. She had come so far from that exhausted single mom in the grocery store. She had rediscovered herself, her passion, her purpose. And she had done it all with Xavier by her side, supporting her, loving her, believing in her even when she struggled to believe in herself. That night, after the kids were in bed and the house was quiet, Penelope and Xavier sat on their balcony, looking out at the city lights. She was curled against his side, his arm around her shoulders, and everything felt right with the world. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we had not run into each other that day?" she asked. "All the time," he admitted. "I think I would have eventually tracked you down. I was already thinking about hiring a private investigator trying to find you. I had never gotten over you, Penny. You were the one that got away, and I couldn't live with that anymore. Really, really. I was miserable without you. Oh, I was successful and busy, but I was lonely. Nothing felt complete. Then I saw you in that grocery store, and it was like my heart started beating again for the first time in 8 years." She turned to kiss him, slow and sweet. "We have a good life. We have the best life, and it's only going to get better. How can you be so sure?" He smiled, that same smile that had made her fall in love with him all those years ago. "Because I have you, because we have our family, because we fought our way back to each other and we're never letting go again. That's how I know." The years continued to unfold like pages in a book. Lily went to college and thrived, eventually meeting a boy who treated her with the kind of love and respect she had seen modeled her entire life. Alexander followed in his father's footsteps, showing an early interest in business and entrepreneurship. Penelope published 6 novels, each one more successful than the last, and became a regular speaker at writing conferences, inspiring other women to pursue their dreams no matter how late they started. Xavier's company continued to grow, but he never lost sight of what mattered most. He turned down opportunities that would have taken him away from his family, choosing presence over profit. He coached Alexander's soccer team and never missed one of Lily's college performances in the theater club. He read every word Penelope wrote and provided thoughtful feedback, remaining her first and most honest reader. On their 10th anniversary, they renewed their vows at the same spot where they had gotten married. Lily and Alexander stood beside them, now young adults, beaming with pride at their parents. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends, but it was perfect. 10 years ago, I married my college sweetheart for the second time, Penelope said in her vows. I married the man who had always held my heart, even when we were apart. These 10 years have been the happiest of my life. Xavier, you gave me back my dreams. You gave me a family. You gave me everything I didn't even know I was missing. I love you more today than I did yesterday, and I'll love you even more tomorrow. Xavier's voice was thick with emotion when he spoke. Penny, you walked back into my life when I needed you most, even though I didn't know it at the time. You reminded me what it means to really live, not just work. You gave me purpose beyond business deals and board meetings. You gave me our beautiful family. I promise to spend every day for the rest of my life making sure you know how loved you are, how extraordinary you are, how grateful I am that fate brought us back together in that grocery store. They kissed as husband and wife again, and their children cheered, and Penelope felt the same butterflies she had felt the first time she kissed him back in college. Some loves were meant to last forever, even if the path to forever was not straightforward. When Lily got married 3 years later, Xavier walked her down the aisle with tears streaming down his face. Penelope watched from the front row, remembering the scared 6-year-old who had hidden behind her leg in the grocery store, marveling at the confident young woman she had become. Lily had grown up in a home full of love, and it showed in everything she did, in the way she loved fearlessly, in the way she believed in happy endings. "Our baby is all grown up," Xavier said that night as they danced at the reception. "She is, and she found someone wonderful. Someone who looks at her the way you look at me. That's all I ever wanted for her, to find what we have." Alexander graduated from business school and started his own company with Xavier's guidance. Father and son would spend hours talking strategy and planning, and Penelope would watch them with a full heart. This was what family was supposed to be, what she had dreamed of giving her children. As they moved into their 50s, Xavier and Penelope began to slow down, to savor life more. They traveled, just the two of them, revisiting Paris and exploring new places. They spent long weekends at the lake house, reading on the deck and swimming in the water. They became grandparents when Lily had a daughter, and watching Xavier with his granddaughter was almost as sweet as watching him with their own children had been. "We did it," Penelope said one night as they sat on their balcony, the same spot where they had spent countless evenings over the years. "We built something real. We built something extraordinary," Xavier corrected. "A family, a legacy of love. Our kids know what real partnership looks like because they watched us. That's the greatest thing we could have given them. Do you ever regret it? Those 8 years we lost?" He considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I wish we had not wasted that time. But then I think about how those years shaped us, made us who we needed to be for this to work. We were not ready at 22. We needed to grow up, to make mistakes, to learn what really mattered. So no, I don't regret it. Those years led us back to each other, and that's all that matters." Penelope leaned against him, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "I love you, Xavier Langston. I love you, Penelope Langston. I always have. I always will." And that was the truth of it. Their love story had not been simple or easy. It had been messy and complicated and full of obstacles. But it had also been worth every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt. Because in the end, they had found their way back to each other, and they had built a life that was everything either of them could have dreamed of and more. Years later, when Penelope was an established author with a devoted readership, she wrote one final novel. It was their story, thinly veiled as fiction, about two people who lost each other and found their way back. She dedicated it to Xavier, to Lily, to Alexander, to their grandchildren, to the entire family they had created. It became her most successful book, resonating with readers who had also experienced second chances, who had also wondered about the one who got away. At the book launch, Xavier stood beside her, his hair now silver at the temples, his face lined with the evidence of a life well lived. He held her hand as she gave her speech, talking about love and loss and redemption. When she finished, he pulled her close and kissed her in front of everyone, and the crowd erupted in applause. "Thank you for writing our story," he whispered in her ear. "Thank you for giving me a story worth writing," she replied. They went home that night to their penthouse, the same one they had moved into all those years ago when they were still figuring things out. It was filled with photos now, chronicling decades of birthdays and holidays and everyday moments that made up a life. Pictures of Lily growing up, of Alexander learning to walk, of family vacations and quiet dinners and celebrations big and small. This was their legacy. Not the company Xavier had built or the books Penelope had written, though those mattered too. Their real legacy was the family they had created, the love they had nurtured, the example they had set for their children and grandchildren. They had shown that second chances were real, that love could survive time and distance and mistakes. They had shown that the best stories were the ones you lived. On their 30th wedding anniversary, surrounded by their children and grandchildren at the lake house, Xavier stood up to make a toast. 30 years ago, I married the love of my life for the second time. The first time we met, we were 18 years old and thought we knew everything. We fell in love fast and hard, the way you do when you're young and everything feels infinite. Then we broke up, and I spent 8 years thinking I had lost my chance at happiness. But then, in a moment I can only describe as miraculous, I ran into Penny at a grocery store. She was a single mom, working 2 jobs, exhausted but still the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. And I knew, standing there in the cereal aisle, that this was my second chance, that I could not let her slip away again. These 30 years have been the greatest adventure of my life. Penny, you have made me a better man, a better father, a better human being. You challenged me and supported me and loved me even when I did not deserve it. Lily, Alexander, you are both proof that love creates miracles. And to our grandchildren, I hope you grow up knowing that real love exists, that it is worth fighting for, and that sometimes the best things in life are worth waiting for. To my beautiful wife, my partner, my everything, I love you more than words can express. Here is to 30 more years together. Everyone raised their glasses, and Penelope felt tears stream down her face. She looked around at her family, at the life she had built with this incredible man, and felt nothing but gratitude. Later that night, when everyone else was asleep, she and Xavier walked down to the dock, just like they had done so many times over the years. The moon was full, reflecting off the water, and everything was peaceful and perfect. "What are you thinking about?" Xavier asked, pulling her close. "Everything. How far we have come. How lucky I am. How much I love you. I'm the lucky one. I got to spend my life with you." She turned to face him, placing her hands on his chest, feeling his heartbeat under her palms. "Do you remember the first time you told me you loved me? We were in your dorm room studying for finals and you just blurted it out." He laughed. "I remember. You looked at me like I was crazy. I was terrified. I had never felt anything that intense before. But I told you I loved you too because it was true. It has always been true. Even during those 8 years apart, especially then. I tried to move on, tried to love someone else, but my heart was always yours. Running into you at that grocery store felt like coming home." Xavier kissed her, and even after all these years, it still felt like the first time. Like magic and promise and forever all wrapped into one perfect moment. "I would do it all again," he said. "Every mistake, every detour, every moment of heartbreak, because it all led us here to this life, to this love." "Me too," she whispered. "Every single bit of it." They stood on the dock until the sky started to lighten, talking and remembering and dreaming about the future that still stretched before them. They had built something beautiful together, something lasting. Their love story had started with 2 kids who thought they knew everything, had been interrupted by life and choices and timing, and had found its way back to where it always belonged. In the end, that was what mattered. Not the obstacles or the years apart, but the fact that they had found their way back to each other. That they had chosen love over fear, had chosen to believe in second chances, had chosen each other every single day. And as the sun rose over the lake, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Penelope and Xavier stood together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next, because they had each other and that was everything. That was enough. That was their happily ever after.